I rise in support of H.R. 623, the Gabriella Miller Kids First Research Act 2.0. We're considering this bill in the memory of Gabriella Miller, who was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor and sadly passed at the age of 10 in 2013. Mr. Speaker, cancer is one of the leading causes of death in American children, but only 4% of National Cancer Institute's budget is dedicated to pediatric cancer research. The Kids First program was first established at the National Institutes of Health in 2014 after Congress passed the original Gabriella Miller Kids First research bill. The goal of this program is to enhance collaborative research on childhood cancer and structural birth defects, including the development of a large-scale database of clinical and genetic data to discover shared generic pathways between the disorders. Since its creation, the Kids First program has recruited over 40 pediatric cancer and structural birth defect cohorts for whole genome sequencing, representing 20,000 pediatric patients and 48,000 genomes. The database developed and maintained by the Kids First program has become a critical tool for pediatric cancer researchers and practitioners across the country. So, Mr. Speaker, the bill before us reauthorizes and transfers the Kids First program from the NIH Common Fund to the Division of Program Coordination, Planning, and Strategic Initiatives, which will give the program more stability and allow for appropriate planning. The legislation also increases the funding authorization to $25 million annually for 5 years. I want to thank Representative Wexton for her leadership on this issue and Ranking Member Rogers and Guthrie for working with us on this important bill. And finally, I want to thank Ellen and Mark Miller for their relentless advocacy in honor of their daughter. The Kids First program may lead to the next big medical breakthrough for some of the rarest cancers, and those breakthroughs simply would not be possible without their long-time commitment to this effort. And so I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from New Jersey reserves. Gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
I would like to yield to the gentleman from Georgia so much time as he may consume.
The gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Carter, is recognized.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, I rise to express my support for H.R. 623, the Gabriella Miller Kids First Research Act 2.0. This bill, which is supported by a large bipartisan group of co-sponsors, including my Energy and Commerce Committee colleagues Bill Arakis, Mullen, and McKinley, would reauthorize the Gabriella Miller Kids First Pediatric Cancer Research Initiative at the National Institutes of Health. Cancer remains the leading cause of death from disease among children. According to the National Cancer Institute, an estimated 10,500 new cases of cancer will be diagnosed among children from birth to 14 years, and over 1,000 children are expected to die from the disease. Children are not just little adults, and childhood cancers are not always treated like adult cancers. That's why it remains important to continue to support a robust pediatric oncology portfolio at the National Institutes of Health. This legislation prioritizes pediatric research complements existing research activities of the National Institutes of Health. I'm pleased to support this reauthorization, honoring the courage and life of Gabriella Miller. I urge a yes vote on this legislation, and I yield back.
The gentleman from Georgia yields back. Gentleman from Virginia reserves. Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to now yield such time as she may consume to the sponsor of the bill, Representative Wexton from Virginia.
The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong support of the Gabriella Miller Kids First Research Act 2.0, transformative legislation that would vastly increase funding for life-saving research of treatment and cures for childhood cancer and rare diseases. This legislation would reauthorize the Gabriella Miller Kids First Pediatric Research Program, which is set to expire next year, for an additional 5 years and increase funding to $25 million annually, which is nearly double the current amount. I'm proud that this bill has broad bipartisan support with over 110 co-sponsors. It also passed through committee unanimously. I'm proud to carry this legislation in honor of Gabriella, who is from Virginia's 10th Congressional District. Gabriella was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor and passed away in 2013 at age 10. She was a fierce fighter, not just in her own battle with cancer, but as an advocate on behalf of the millions of other children who have suffered from this terrible disease. In the months following her terminal diagnosis, Gabriella became a national force for change, urging Congress to, quote, stop talking, start doing, and increase funding to discover better treatments and cures. Her heroic efforts delivered a successful push to pass the Gabriella Miller Kids First Research Act in 2014, bipartisan legislation named in her honor. Gabriella's family joined sponsor Representative Eric Cantor of Virginia and President Barack Obama in the Oval Office for the bill signing. The Kids First program has done remarkable work over the past few years, sequencing more than 20,000 samples from childhood cancer and structural birth defect cohorts, and starting the Gabriella Miller's Kids First Data Resource Center, a comprehensive data resource for research and patient communities meant to advance discoveries. It's been almost 9 years since we lost Gabriella, and there's still a long fight ahead to better understand, treat, and ultimately cure childhood cancer. Tragically, cancer is the #1 cause of disease-related death in children age 14 or younger. This year alone, it is estimated that more than 10,000 children in the U.S. under age 15 will be diagnosed with cancer. Yet, despite these staggering statistics, the tools we have to treat these diseases are woefully inadequate. Many of the treatments available today for battling cancer haven't seen significant advances in decades. In fact, Gabriella Miller died from the same brain cancer that Neil Armstrong's daughter died from in 1962. 50 years later, she was receiving the same kind of treatment. That's outrageous. We're failing our kids, and we can and we must do better. My bipartisan Gabriella Miller Kids First Research Act 2.0 nearly doubles funding for the Kids First program. With this major boost in federal funding, we'll unlock the full potential of Kids First and enable the hardworking doctors, scientists, and researchers to step up their work to find ways we can help these children suffering from cancer and rare diseases. Mr. Speaker, this is a life-saving bill. For the Millers who are here in the Capitol watching us advance this bill today, and the millions of American families who have had to go through the torment of hearing a doctor deliver a cancer diagnosis for their child, I urge all of my colleagues to heed Gabriella's call to stop talking, start doing, and pass this bipartisan bill. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from New Jersey reserves. Gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of H.R. 623, the Gabriella Miller Kids First Research Act 2.0. As many people know, I try to be fairly conservative when it comes to spending federal dollars or authorizing federal dollars to be spent. But, Mr. Speaker, if we're going to spend money at the federal level on all kinds of things, near the top of that list ought to be research for cures for cancer. And even higher on that list should be research for children who have cancer and for diseases that affect specifically the young people of this nation. So I don't think that anyone is going to oppose this. I'm sure that I will be proven wrong and a floor vote later. But for me, this one reaches the bar that we ought to have unanimous or near unanimous support on the floor, as we did in the Energy and Commerce Committee. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Gentleman from Virginia yields back. Gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Pallone is recognized.
The gentleman has yielded.
That is correct.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, again, I think this is a very important bill, and I want to thank Representative Wexton for her leadership on this issue and ask that members on both sides of the aisle support the bill. And with that, I yield back.